Yes, back again. Feels so good to be back. Thank you for excusing my absence last week. Joey Molinaro back in the saddle here on Speed Street. I was away at Disney World, seeing the mouse with my son and my family last week, and I was just having a little family time, watching him run around and do all that craziness. So apologize for not being here last week, but glad to be here this week, back again on an off-season edition of Speed Street. We got a little bit of everything this week. We could talk some football. We could talk some. We got a podium coming, of course. We have drivers' meetings happening. We have some news about Indy 500 in 2024, all here. So all good things. Thank you for joining us as always, and of course, producer Ben Walton and my guy Connor Daly. How we doing, fellas? Connor, what's happening, man?
Oh, great. This is a great time of year. I love it. Great to have you back as well. No guests this week for us, but I do think that we have a great guest for next week's show, which we will kind of just maybe we won't reveal it yet, but going to do one more show next week before the holiday break, the Christmas time. It's also my birthday next week, so we'll consider a birthday Christmas send-off program with a great guest who I think will be a lot of fun. So it's going to be a fun couple weeks. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about still, though. I haven't been able to give everyone, I guess, I would say an inside look at, all the drivers coming to town for our physicals. Like last week, everyone goes in, they take all of our blood, they measure where our brains are at. And then they tell us about, some of the stuff that, hey, we're going to look for next year, rule changes, things for the competition. Here's how the $1 million challenge race in thermal is going to work out and stuff like that. So there's a lot to get into there. We have Rolex 24 testing going on right now. A lot of IndyCar guys down there doing that. Marcus Ericsson's of the world, probably the Hinches, probably the Alexes, probably everyone that you might know of that's probably doing the
right?
Rolex. Old Kirkwood's probably down there. Guest of the show, Connor DeFilippi's down there as well. So everyone's doing a bunch of work, tons of drivers. Which is cool. Sometimes they have that, like the Roar before the 24. I don't know if this is the Roar. I think maybe it is. I'm not sure. But normally they have that like in this month or like very, very at the end of like kind of around New Year's, early January, as far as I know. But yeah, so there's still stuff going on. And, I spoke with Marshall Pruitt yesterday too. A lot more going on in the news world and in the driver's seat world than normal. So, we have things to talk about, and we also have, there's some, we have football that is just taking over everyone's lives as well. So we have so many things to cover, which I'm excited to get into.
For better or for worse. Mostly for worse for me on the football side of things, but that's okay. That's fandom. Why don't we start off real quick if you want to, with a little bit of a news drop for our listeners, for the neighborhood here on Speed Street, regarding you and the 2024 Indy 500.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? We're not going to drop any news, but we're going to at least encourage our listeners, because we like to really just make sure that you guys are listening. Like, hey, maybe there are folks out there that like this podcast. I enjoy doing it for people.
Hopefully,
I hope that you guys like it as well.
Yeah.
But it is now clear that I will be making an attempt to qualify for the Indy 500 next year. Obviously, it's not like, oh, hey, I'm going to do the 500, because obviously who knows how many cars are going to be there. But it does now look like you can consider me in the running for, competing in that event. So we will not reveal any details, no details like that, but we just want to give people like a little heads up, like, hey, we made some great progress, and the progress is exciting. Now, again, that means obviously no full season of IndyCar racing for me, like officially, fully, like that's it, but that's fine. I think that is totally, for me right now, the best possible scenario for my career was trying to do the Indy 500 with a great situation, which this will be if all continues to go. I mean, it will, but that's why we're telling you. But yeah, excited about that. We still have a lot of great potential for a more full-time program as well. And I hope to really know more about that really by my birthday or by next week. Maybe it's an early birthday present. We'll see. But still focused on going NASCAR Truck Series racing. That would be a great situation for my career. But that's kind of what's going on. That's the latest for the Connor Daily News segment.
Okay, so we can hope, fingers crossed, that next week on the 2023 send-off show, we can have some even more concrete news, perhaps.
I don't know. Announcements or who knows? You never know on that. But let's just be happy to be where we're at.
Okay.
Maybe we can drop the news on a show. We'll do a special announcement just via like a live YouTube stream or something. I don't know.
There you go. Yeah, get those YouTube subscribers
up.
Numbers
up. Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, we do know that, like you mentioned, the drivers were in town, having the physicals, the meetings. Just want a little insight, a little behind the scenes, if you will, from your perspective of kind of what went down there during those get-togethers.
Yeah, and it's funny because those meetings are always, it's obviously very, it's a private thing, right? Like, hey, we got the drivers in there, Jay Fry, Kyle Novak, Kevin Blanche, all the head guys for the competition side, on the tech side, Dave First in there too, all the folks from the like the head of our medical team as well. So just the head honchos that make.
Where was this
taking
place? The convention
this is in
center?
the IndyCar offices. So we go over there, boom, IndyCar offices. You know what? I got to give them credit. Had coffee for us, nice fruit display, couple bagels. Fantastic to be able to go in there, 9 a.m.
Yep.
I'm going to have some snacks. I'm going to have some pineapple. I'm going to have maybe some little croissants, and I'm going to have 14,000 cups of coffee. Actually, drivers, apparently we all drink a lot of coffee because we ran the whole thing out of coffee. Like we ran the event out of coffee. So that was kind of a surprise for me. But yeah, I would say not everyone was there. But the majority of the field, I would say, was there. Let's go by people who weren't there, because basically everyone else was there except so Pato not there.
I was going to say Pato, Scott Dixon.
Dixon not there. Yeah. Oh yeah. Guess who wasn't there? I'm gonna leave it up to you to guess the rest. There's probably like 5 or 6. So we got Pato and Dixon.
Yep.
Who's next?
I'm gonna go Scotty Mack.
He was not there. Yeah, he was on his European drinking binge vacation or cultural experience, whatever that was. Yeah.
That's if that's what you want to call it. Joseph Newgarden.
Joseph was there. Yeah, big time leader of the Indy 500 winning driver, so he had to be there. Yeah,
had to be there. Okay, all right.
Joseph
So
was
we got
there.
Scotty Mack, Dixon, Pato. So it's 3 out of 5. You said?
I think probably when I'm. Yeah, maybe 5 total weren't there. Yeah, so if you name it, I'll know.
Ben, do you have any thoughts, any ideas?
Was the champ there, or was he maybe doing some legal
Hello,
things?
not there. Hello was giving birth to a baby. Yeah.
Hard,
There you go.
okay.
Hard launch.
All right, a lot better.
Yeah.
Hard launch a baby.
There you go. Hard launch the baby. Yeah.
That was
Fired
wild.
it out there. Yeah. So
congrats to Alex and Esther. That's great.
Yeah. So Alex had legitimate reasons to not be there. Obviously,
Sure.
That's
not like
pretty
Scotty
important.
Mack.
So we're at 4, and I believe there's probably, when I think back, I want to say there's probably one more that you would have to. Oh yeah. There. I know the one that wasn't there that you would probably guess, or
okay,
you might not guess.
Well, is it everybody? So anybody who's going to drive? So 500 drivers.
It is 500. There was 5. So RC Enerson was there. RC was there.
Okay.
But I was teammates with this driver at one point this year. Now that could be a lot of folks. So
Elio probably wasn't there.
Elio was not there, but he's not a full-time driver anymore. So I kind of didn't count him. But this one's kind of he's a full-time driver next year. I was teammates with him.
Tom Blomqvist?
No, Tom was there. You can get this. He was a guest on this program.
Graham Rahal.
Yeah, you got it. Graham wasn't
Nice.
there. Yeah, Graham was there, which I was surprised about. Graham loves being there. He's always been one of the very voicey ones at these meetings in the past. So
Right.
Yeah, so those are the main heads that were not there. But yeah, good to see R.C. Anderson there. He was there. The young rookies, Stingray Bob was there. Basically everyone else, everyone else. But yeah, it's basically, sometimes they do the meetings where there's it lasted all day almost. Like you got in there at 8 and it would go till like 2.
It's like an orientation.
Yeah, but they would also go through like last year during the meetings, we had them at the IMS Media Center and they were telling us about the 100 Days to Indy show that they were going to do, right? So they had a big media side of it, like, oh, hey, like this is what we're going to do. Like this is how we're going to get better. That element was not a part of it, which I was kind of sad about. But again, maybe they'll do that at like one of the preseason tests at like last year at Thermal. They kind of did another little setup of like, hey, here's what we're doing to make sure the series is going to be on fire this year and do great things. So that element was missing, but we basically just focused on as we go through the year, right? There are several rules that come into question. There are several things that become topics that Kyle Novak writes down like, hey, we're going to discuss these in the off season, right? I'd say one of the number one discussion points was, if we remember last year, Joseph Newgarden winning the Indy 500.
Yep.
He was very aggressively snaking down the back straight and the front straight. And a lot of people had a problem with that. And, or some people had a problem with that. But him kind of going way down out of 4, like below the attenuator, it was potentially a dangerous situation. So that was a big topic of conversation. And I'm actually real quick. Yeah.
Is that snake tactic? Is that going to become like IndyCar's touch push?
I don't know, because again, the first time that really happened, we kind of all talked about this, was like it was a smart move by Simon Pagenaud to try to win the race in 19 or whatever it was. Like it hasn't really been something that's been very prevalent for a long time. So it makes sense to try to break the draft, right? It makes sense to try to, it might help you block if you need to into 3. But realistically, I've not seen the snake like lead to an accident yet. Like that's not necessarily where, it's a big safety hazard because it's like caused a bunch of crashes, but it is very much an accordion effect, right? Because if the lead car is doing it, every single car within drafting range is going to be doing that because the draft is so important. So, and to be honest, it made SportsCenter too. So that's like playing devil's advocate, because a lot of the drivers, the feel in the meeting was that bad. We don't like that. We don't need that. But I was having a little chat in the back with Jack Harvey and a couple other folks, and I was like, I don't necessarily see it as a super like dangerous thing. And if anything, it's like, whoa, this is kind of exciting. Now, again, blocking is very dangerous, right? Like if you're snaking from one side to the other and you just keep going as someone pops out, that's when you cause a major accident, especially in the front of the field too. So that's, I see it, but yeah, that was definitely a point of contention. I think there were a lot of drivers, more so than I expected, that were saying, hey, we got to figure out a rule to maybe combat this, right? So I think for sure we're going to see cars not be able to, go down past the attenuator on the front straight, especially on the last lap, but all throughout the race, right? So I think you're going to, the days of seeing Joseph go all the way to the inside wall, essentially almost in pit entry, those days are probably over, which is fine. Joseph's like, hey, I completely I did what I had to do.
I got my 500. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, he's like, I won. I don't care. I still get the milk. But the only issue with potentially penalizing a snaky type move is who's going to hand out that penalty to the winner of the Indy 500 on the front straight when he's celebrating? Are we pulling Joseph out of the crowd saying, "Hey, buddy, you didn't win"? Like,
right? Yeah.
That's a big point of contention in the room. It's like, are you guys going to have the balls to be like, hey, you made an illegal move, it goes to whoever's in second? You know what I mean? Sure. Like that's a big deal. Now again, there has to be rules in this sport because it's a sport, right? Like there was a horrible pass interference call in a football game the other night, making sure the Chiefs weren't going to win. There was some pass interference call, like everyone agrees that was pass interference. But guess what? It still happened. And that's it. Like you can't argue with it. Like people have rules for a reason. There are things that like there are human errors by refs in football that will always go down in history as like a terrible thing, but there's still someone who wins and someone who loses. So I am all for having the rules enforced. I definitely think at the 500, just in general, the rules are a little bit softened up, right? Like I for sure have got away with many blocks that should have been penalties, but we are all kind of racing at that even higher level to where you're kind of expecting, the stuff to hit the fan, as they say. So, I mean, what would you think if you saw the winner across the finish line? You're like, oh my gosh. And then it's like, actually, he didn't win. Like, it's big. That's big drama. That's something.
Yeah. No, I mean, it would definitely go down to the history books.
Yeah.
You know, you have your various 500s throughout history that have the titles for different things that happen, spin and win, that kind of thing, right?
Snake and win. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a situation where if that were to happen and then, they award it to the second place, would be all sorts of craziness. And maybe, if it's the person in Joseph Newgarden's shoes, like maybe they get out and they absolutely lose their mind and throw their helmet at the winner on the podium who's drinking the milk, and then Indycar gets a whole bunch of pub.
It's
and
great. Sports Center,
right? Like it, because I have a hard time seeing anybody have a rational reaction to that rule or a penalty like that being set upon them and taking away the win. But it is, it's like you said, it's,
but you have to
it
have
doesn't
rules,
happen often, but like it is, the past 2 years now, you had Marcus do it to Pato, and then you had Joseph do it back to Marcus.
Yeah.
Which I know rubbed a lot of people the wrong way when Marcus was kind of moaning, and after the race, it's like, hey, just remember in 2021 when you just did that, or 2022 when you just did that. I don't know. I mean, I see both sides of it, but it is, like I said, like when I asked you about the tush push, it's like that kind of like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like people are upset about it.
I think the tush push is fine. Like, sorry, it's hard to block, but like, shoot, it's part of the game. You got a bunch of dudes lining up and pushing their dude into the end zone.
Right. And some can make the argument that it's dangerous because, they're low and all the scrum and everything like that. But like, some can make the argument about the snake being dangerous, but I mean, it's kind of it's a strategy of, hey, I got to do what I got to do to make sure this gap isn't closing on me. I think, hey, what if Marco Andretti would have done that in 2006?
Exactly. Right. So there's a lot there. My thought behind it. And again, the drivers were very much were against the whole snaking than I really thought. And again, I think putting a rule in place to prevent it is that you walk a very tight line then, because your initial reaction is just going to be to do it, right? Because you want to break the draft. And I still think that you are able to penalize blocking even if you are doing the snake, right? Because let's say the whole science behind it is you get out of 3. Let's take the back straight, for example.
Yeah.
You get out of 3 leading last lap. You hook left down to the inside, right?
Big time.
Unless you've made a mistake out of 2, the car is not going to be directly behind you. Like, he's going to have to use that whole straight, or at least half that straight, to get a run on you. So the snaking is just to prevent that run from coming quicker. But let's say you're sweeping back up to the right, the car behind you is getting that run, and it pops left, and you go left as well. That is a reactionary block, which is supposed to be a penalty, right? Like that, you can't, like if someone pops out underneath you and you also go down, you can't just say, well, that was what I was doing. It's like, you can still call that because, again, of course you're going to go left from the snake maneuver, right? Because that's what's going to happen. But it's also like, you can see that car in your mirror, and you can also understand from your spotter, like how close that car is going to be. So I think putting a limit on the snaking is a bit silly, other than, where Joseph went for last year's race. That was obviously a bit dangerous. And that's for sure. I agree with, you can't go below the attenuator. But, the drivers kind of agreed that there will be a limitation put on the snaking. I think there will be a limit to how many moves. I'll leave it to them to write it up and figure out what's going on. But I do believe that we will see a limit to the amount of moves that you can make out of 3 and out of 2 and out of 4. Really anytime during the race, but specifically, because you're not really snaking until the last 10 laps anyway.
Right.
So I see that it seemed like that was there were more people on that side of putting limitations. Even Colton Herta was on that side too, which I was kind of surprised about. I don't know why we put rules in place, because again, everyone's going to want to do it. And if you're the one who gets caught making more than the moves that are, allowed, boy, that's going to be real easy to penalize, because you can count, and then if you say, okay, let's say you can make 2 moves out of 2 or 2 moves out of 4 before you're like out of moves, right? What if it's like, well, I was bending the car down, that wasn't my move?
Where's the line?
Exactly, because out of 2 and out of 4, we already let the car drift down to the center of the track anyway. So does that count as a move? Like,
right?
I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments and in the Twitter sphere,
Tweet
Instagram,
us,
because it's an interesting point. And I see both sides for sure. But the problem is a decision has to be made. And one of the things that I learned the most is not everyone is ever going to be on the same page. It's the same with, we see it in the election every year, right? Half people hate everything and half people are like, yeah, we win. You know what I mean? So like it's just interesting to see who is on what side, I would say. So that was really the major point of discussion. There was definitely a few things that might be added for the Indy 500 next year, which I think is cool. Like just kind of like some additions to help people be aware of what's going on in the qualifying. Not like rule changes, but just things to help the fans understand who's going when, where, especially in the whole bump day situation, or when you're trying to make the fast 12. So I think there's a couple cool things coming there. But yeah, I think it's good to have a discussion. But who do you think? Out of the drivers that we know were there, who do you think spoke the most? Who do you think was most voicey of their thoughts and maybe their disagreements of over what's going on?
Well, my 3 that I was going to say weren't there.
Okay. There you go.
My top 3 were going to be.
You have so many more choices, though.
I know, but my top 3 were going to be Pato, Dixon, Graham.
Yep, but
in
that
no
is
particular
normal.
order. No particular order, but I'm guessing because this was such a nerve point, considering what happened in the past year. I'm guessing that Joseph Newgarden probably had a lot of things to say.
He did have things to say. He did. I would say he didn't talk the most, but Joseph is very diplomatic with the way he says things. He's like,
sure, he's a politician.
Now let's listen here. Like, what do you think about in this scenario? And it's like, all right, Joseph's very smart. He's very good at everything. We get it. Yeah.
Let's stay with Penske. Will Power.
So Power, I love when he talks. He said some things during that meeting that I don't know if I can really repeat, but it was so funny. Like all of a sudden Power will just start like shouting expletives and you're like, all right. And Power was like super sick too. He sounded like his voice was in a different octave, and he was just like,
oh no.
Anytime he was saying something, he was either cursing or he was making a great joke. So Power, again, good little comments. Like Power was like more like the throw in the comments here and there. And he obviously, there was a lot of talk about the hybrid units, of course, and he's done a lot of testing for them. So he got in on that. But Joseph was definitely, I would say, in the top 3 for things said.
My last one, let's go with that smart ass Alexander Rossi.
Yep, that is number 1. Yeah, Alex is number 1. Alex had sent a text to me as well saying he just wanted to sit in the back and be quiet. Sure enough, he's like, a row in front of me, sitting right next to my ex-boss, Ed Carpenter, and Alex was just having it. He was getting after it. He was presenting his points. He was getting into some discussion. So Alex definitely has some things to say. for the positive, I would say, hopefully for the positive of the series. But yeah, it's funny, man. I wish at times that we weren't all as like confident in ourselves as we are, because drivers are never wrong. Like all of us, like we're all the same. We all have a lot of the same mindset. We go in there, and even after a while, like you start thinking, okay, maybe we've come to, maybe this discussion point has finally come to an end. Nope. Here comes another. Well, in this scenario, Christian Lundgaard has video of an incident that happened with him and Joseph. He's like, but what about this moment here? And like that. And it's like, all right, as soon as we're pulling out YouTube videos to try and discuss incidents, like it's just, it becomes a bit messy. And, we end up, it was supposed to be 9 to noon. We leave there like 1:30. You know what I mean? So like we're there, I think, far more than we were supposed to be. But yeah, apart from the rules, there were learned a little bit more about the $1 million challenge thing in thermal.
Do tell.
At the thermal. I obviously probably don't. I can't say anything yet because they haven't announced things, but it's interesting, and I think it will be an exciting, different way to watch a race.
Okay.
But you know what? At this point, I don't think we have anything to lose. I think we just try. You have to try stuff.
Sure.
And so I'm excited to see how that goes for them. Obviously, I will not be a part of it. I will definitely not even go because they would probably turn me away at the gate if I was to go to that race. So it sounds like, there's a lot of money that has been invested into that race from the folks that are like members at the Thermal Club, right? So
yeah,
it's going to be fun to watch. I think there are still a few things to be sorted out, but again, interesting little nuggets to pay attention to when the announcements come out. And yeah, other than that, just pretty much lots of arguments between rules. So I think we'll see a couple small rule changes for next year. I think we'll see a couple different things in place. But that's the point of discussion, really. That's kind of sometimes it's stuff you got to get into. Got to get in the weeds a little bit.
That's right. I mean, it's how our forefathers found this place. They sat in a room from dusk until dawn and, hashed it out just like you fellas and ladies were doing last week. So that's good. That's good. What's going on with the Rolex? People getting ready for that? The testing?
Yes, we've got a lot of drivers. A lot of IndyCar folk down there. A lot of interesting combinations, too. We've got, at the Wayne Taylor Racing Team, you've got Jensen Button, Marcus Ericsson, I think all those guys together. A pretty impressive lineup, to be honest. Jordan Taylor, Colton Herta, Jensen Button in one car, right? So you've got several friends of the show. Yep. And then I believe Marcus Ericsson is in their team car, or their other car. So that's a pretty solid group
IndyCar
of drivers
heavy,
right there. Yeah. But it's going to be cool to see that race. I think is going to have a lot of excitement, a lot of different drivers that you can follow from any series, right? Like there are going to be NASCAR folk in there, probably a little bit less, but you're going to have Marcus Ericsson in there, Colton Herta, obviously, and pretty much everyone that there's a ton of drivers. You have Kyle Kirkwood in there in the Lexus, a lot of folks. So it'll be good to see that. Good to see an event in January too. Obviously, I wish I could do the Rolex. A lot of those teams, they go for the big names and the folks that have a ton of success, which I completely understand. Or you got to have a lot of money to bring with you, and I do not have that. So it's one of those things that, hey, if I get a call in a week or two to do the Rolex, absolutely I would do it. It looks like I'm going to do it in 2025. That's more likely as of now. So
nice.
If you're a Rolex fan, I'm planning on being there in 2025. So
awesome.
That would be really fun. But
cool.
Yeah, great to see cars on track, some stuff rolling. But there's a lot of interesting other news. I had a great chat with Marshall Pruitt yesterday.
Love Marshall Pruitt.
He's got a lot of, inside info, and we don't want to spoil all of his secrets, but there's a lot going on, I would say, in the driver front. We still have a full team that does not have drivers yet, right? Like we have Dale Coyne Racing that does not have any drivers signed. We even have AJ Foyt Racing where there is a lot of turmoil, apparently. Like not turmoil, but just indecision, I would say, and I don't. It's kind of a shame to hear about. I think there are like some sides that don't think that there's any turmoil, but some sides think that there is.
Turmoil in terms of who?
I don't know who's driving for
be,
them yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was going to say like they
that
don't
type
know
of
who
turmoil.
to.
And I think there's some funding that needs to happen there, and obviously, Benjamin Peterson, friend of the show, he's done a deal there to be there for 3 years, as he said to us. But I don't know if there's basically some internal things that are going down there that need to be discussed. And, I'm not going to bring their, all their business out here, but it's just going to be something to pay attention to, because I think when one domino falls, then that means other dominoes will fall for Dale Coyne Racing and for others. So it's, we are by no means close to the end of the IndyCar silly season. And even talking to Marshall, the Indy 500 seats that are available, right? I think you could probably get to 35 cars, trying to make the race. There were a couple names that he mentioned that are looking for seats that were a bit of a surprise, and some that aren't. But I am happy to be at least down the road, and even with the teammate that I will have or teammate or teammates that I will have, very interesting, very happy with it. But I think you're going to see these Indy 500 seats like go before we even get to like March, which is sometimes you're in March and like you still got Indy 500 deals being announced. So, that's exciting for us. That means that these seats are they're going hot. They're going quick. And you're going to have a full field of very prepared entries and prepared drivers and prepared teams, to try to make this race. So it's going to be very interesting.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, we're, let's see, I just saw the Kentucky.
Does J.R. Hildebrand make a comeback? I heard that name in some rumors. J.R. Hildebrand, maybe?
Can we toss out
American
some more
hero?
rumor names? Can we toss out some more rumor names?
I mean, I don't know. I'll leave that. I think Marshall probably writes about it, but there are definitely some people out there that are names that you've heard before. There are not any new names that I know of yet, but definitely names that you've heard before. So very curious. Very curious. Okay, I will go with JR though, because JR obviously he's a household name at the 500. So I think everyone kind of assumes that he'll show up at some point and do a great job for a team.
Okay, so Danica Patrick coming back. Confirmed.
Oh yeah. But let's see the seats that there are to list them for the folks. You got fourth Ray Hall car. You've got an extra Foyt car potentially. That is the potential.
So that'd be three. So because two Santino Benjamin and then three.
Yeah, they'll obviously run two full time and then a third for the 500.
Yeah, okay.
These are just 500 seats that I'm talking about, and then you've obviously got the two DRR cars, dry ramble cars, and then basically Coyne. I could see running an extra car if they really wanted to, but realistically, it's down to the engine manufacturers. So engines are going to be the ones that are limited. You've got the Able Racing team, I believe Jacob Abel's team. They're going to want to come back and do it again because they did a fantastic job last year.
Yeah.
So I could see RC being there again. I could see him having the budget to do it. So yeah, that's kind of what we got. I think there could be more teams that could have the ability to run more cars, but there just aren't enough engines, sadly, which is kind of a shame. So that's latest for Indy 500 specialty news.
Well,
I'm excited about it already.
Well, yeah, that's what I was about to say. I just saw a post from the Kentucky Derby. It said that I think they're 150 days away from the 150th Kentucky Derby, which that's
wild.
Like May 4th or 5th.
Oh, yeah.
Which
that's always a big kickoff.
We're like 170 so days away from the Indy 500. Exciting stuff.
We're getting there.
You mentioned what's the latest with the hybrids in the news?
Oh, yeah. There? Yeah, the hybrids. So I think it's a big question mark. I think obviously, the engine manufacturers want to see the hybrid element introduced. That's the reasoning behind it. Formula One has a big hybrid element. IMSA has a big hybrid element right now. Engine manufacturers, that's kind of the way they want to, see it. Me personally, I mean, I wish it was V12s that shot giant flames. You know what I mean? That naturally aspirated V12 engines, like, let's go. But that's not the reality that we're living in.
Yes.
So, I think it's something to pay attention to. I know the IndyCar is working really hard. They gave us a lot of updates on, on how the testing has gone, what their limitations are. And, there's a lot of times getting these things done, you have to have a good, supply chain, right? And sometimes in this modern era, supply chain issues are everywhere, right? It's tough. So I think it's just something to pay attention to. I know there were supposed to be tests here in December that I've heard have, maybe have been rescheduled. But they, I do love that IndyCar is going to do as much testing as they can do, but obviously you have to try to get that testing out to a lot of the teams, right? It can't just be Penske and Ganassi doing the testing anymore. Like you got to get it to the the coin cars. You got to get it to the ECR cars. You got to get it to to everyone else, and even the Indy 500 entries, like, because there was technically, obviously, supposed to run those things everywhere. So there's a lot there to pay attention to, and I do hope it all gets sorted out. There's been a lot of smart people who have put a lot of hours and a lot of work into that, and you got to respect both manufacturers for doing that as well. So I hope they get what they want out of it. It would be a shame for IndyCar as a series to have to, to have a delay on things like that. Because again, I don't know if you saw you saw Pato Ward's article where he said we just need a new car.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's right. Like, we got to have people that are not afraid to say what they need to say. Like, this car is way too old. Like, we need a new car. I do like, and then Mark Miles came out with a comment saying we got to focus on the engines before the cars. And so it ends up being this like word debate. But like, we do need it. Like we need a new car and we need new engines. Like we need another engine manufacturer, right? So hopefully, at least once we get these engines to the hybrid element, we can just design a whole new car with a whole new engine, hybrid system, everything, whatever you want together. Because it's a necessity. We cannot go 2 or more years with this car. I just don't believe that we can do that. I don't think the series deserves that. I think the series is doing so well right now, or is on an upward trajectory enough to where it's like, hey, when we get this new TV deal, hopefully the right people are negotiating that. Take part of that money and build a new car. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I don't know how that gets done, but it's definitely something that's very, very high on the list. So that's kind of what's going on there with the latest with them.
All right. Well, we'll certainly keep an eye on it and hope for the best. Fingers crossed that it comes
fingers and toes
sooner rather than later. Absolutely. Do you want to hop into podium?
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Cue the exciting podium theme music now. All right.
Start us off.
So I have a few good ones here, I think. P3 for me right now is the Indiana Pacers. So the Indiana Pacers, I'm loving watching the Indiana Pacers. I love basketball and I love going to the games. And it's been a while since I think we've had this type of energy in the city of Indianapolis.
Most definitely.
People just, going crazy at the games. The team is young. The team is exciting. We got Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, all these guys that are just energy factories. Yeah. Obi Toppin, all these guys that are putting balls in holes. You know what I mean? They're putting balls in buckets.
That's right.
And it's so fun to watch. It's so fun to see because this Indiana's a basketball place, right? We're basketball folk. And
our roots, in our deep DNA.
Yeah. Hoosiers, right? But it's cool to see. So Pacers are on the podium for me.
Man, that was my P1. I mean, I'll just bounce right off that. Get my P1 out there, and everything you just said. I was texting a few of my buddies at that game on Monday night against Boston. I was like, man, I haven't sweat like this during a Pacers game in quite a handful of years. So it feels good. Like, it felt great to be on the edge of my seat and be like legitimately, nervous and sweating and ready to, invested so much. And
As a
Pacers
fan, you're
game.
excited. Like, hell yeah, we love this stuff.
Yeah, dude. So Final Four for the Indiana Pacers in the end-season tournament. Tyrese Halliburton is just rocketing into superstardom. It's a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's my number one. Ben, what's your P3?
P3 for me. Bowl season is coming around the corner.
Bowl
Football's all
season.
done. We got the committee all jacked up on Mountain Dew for leaving Florida State out. But
Big
besides
argument.
yeah, my opinion. We can get into that later. But it's funny. So here in Charlotte, we actually do have a bowl game this year. Typically doesn't happen. The Bahamas Bowl. That stadium's being renovated. So they moved it over to Charlotte, and then they wiped the title sponsor, and we have the absolute pleasure of. I might go to it. It's on a Tuesday at noon, so it's kind of odd, but it's Western Kentucky and Old Dominion. So I mean, tell me, there's probably a not more electric bowl game.
It's a banger.
Oh yeah, tickets probably be $8. So I mean, I might as well. So, but other games, I'm very excited for as well.
You go place some wagers and
absolutely.
Drink some beers and watch a random-ass college football game. That's living, brother.
Yeah.
Whole season.
It's sponsored by a breakfast place. So maybe go do some brunch. Actually, it's at 2:30. Go get some brunch at noon. Hop over to the game. Get some mimosas flowing on Tuesday.
You're on Christmas break, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll be graduated at that point. So
that's right.
There you go.
Yeah. So I'll be done. An adult. So maybe I will have some time on Tuesday then. We'll see.
Yeah, people go to war for their college teams. I tell you what, that whole selection thing, Alabama winning that game. Woo.
Yeah.
I mean, we all knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody with a brain cell knew that they were going to put Alabama in. I mean, come on.
I mean, they beat Georgia, so yeah, I get it. But my gosh, I don't even follow college football. I don't follow college football at all because I didn't go to college. I'll watch the playoff games, but seeing people melt down on the internet for that stuff is wild. The passion behind it is very aggressive.
Yeah. An exhausting debate that there's never going to be it's always, like you said earlier, Connor, it's always going to be, the people who got slighted are going to be pissed and think it's wrong. And the people who got in are going to say, yeah, well, we did it. Yeah, there we go. So,
yeah.
Continuing off bowl season a little bit, my P3, is piggybacking a little bit off of it in terms of the fact that we get Jim Harbaugh versus Nick Saban finally. I'm super pumped about that. I think that it's going to be a really, really exciting, entertaining game. Two, thinking about these two classic programs, Alabama, Michigan, at the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day, gets me fired up. But then three, most importantly, I mean, this is the coaching matchup of coaching matchups here. I mean, this is a dream for me with Harbaugh and Saban here. So very, very excited about that. P3 to those guys finally facing off.
And Jim Harbaugh, IndyCar fan. So I have no connection to a college team, but I do have two signed Jim Harbaugh helmets right here in my house, one being a Michigan helmet. I like Jim Harbaugh because he's an IndyCar guy. So
yes,
we will, I don't want anyone from the state of Ohio coming after me or anything like that, but Jim Harbaugh, IndyCar fan, and that's where we're going to, make your decisions from there.
Friends of us.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Exactly. All right, so P2 for me. P2 for me is house organization. I spent the weekend building another helmet storage rack or a helmet display rack. I spent the weekend. I cleaned my entire kitchen. Me and my mother worked hard on basically cleaning out the kitchen. My girlfriend comes to stay with me in a week, so that's probably why we did this. And my gosh, it feels great to have a few things put away, maybe more efficiently put away. So technically, I am also on the podium for this because there are less things on the floor. There are more shoe racks in my closet. There are some things that also I said, be free. I let my mom take them away in a trash bag.
Yeah.
So a bunch of old shirts, stuff that I didn't need. So it feels good to clean the house. I've got much more space to maybe prepare things to cook. Much less bourbon on my counter over here. That was always a big thing that took up the entire counter. have put those away efficiently. So just organizing your house feels great. Now, it takes a lot of work. I took a whole weekend to really get through all this stuff. But, hey, we did it. And I feel like more of an adult today.
Afterwards, yeah, it's a very rewarding feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Just the declutter.
I needed a bourbon after that. I was like, hey, I feel like a man of the house here. That's what I felt like.
Yep, the declutter, the goodwillification of your home
Indeed.
is great. It really is. So good for you. Look at you playing Mr. Host, Mr. Grown-Up Host for the lady. I'm sure she'll
Absolutely.
greatly. My P2 is actually going to go to my son for meeting Santa.
Oh, all right.
We took him to meet Santa on Monday, and he's at this very interesting age, right? He's a little over 1. He's 15 months, and he's very aware now. Like, he walks everywhere. He's doing everything. You know, he's got a personality, right? Like, you're interacting with an actual human now.
Yep.
So you never really know how he's going to be someone that age with Santa. But, man, my dude was ready to go. We walked right up there, and he was pointing at him, and I was like, who is that? And he's like, oh. And we put him down on the ground, and he kind of was like looking at me and his mom, and he's like, should I? Can I? And we're like, yeah, it's Santa. Come on. And he went right up, and he sat on his lap, and he was a little kind of like, maybe he wasn't enjoying it, but he didn't scream. He didn't make a scene. He didn't scream. He just kind of sat there and was like, all right, like, I did this for you, Mom and Dad. Now let's go. So
yeah, let's get out of here. Let's go to the toy store. Yeah.
All right. Big shout out to him being Mr. Brave Guy, seeing Santa.
Love that. Hey, it's that time of year.
That's right. That's right. Thank you.
Love that.
What about you?
P2 for me, I mentioned it to Connor last week before we recorded. I did mention it, so I'll mention it now. But Spotify rap season is here. Everybody was posting their stuff. Oh, yeah. But we had a lot of people tag us.
I didn't know. I didn't
podcast.
See it. Like I didn't see anyone's Spotify raps ever. Right. Yeah, I never saw any of it.
A lot of nobody had T Swift as their top artist. I didn't see any.
Oh yeah, not one person
ever. Yeah, but I did see a lot of Speed Street, part of the top 3 or 4 podcasts for a lot of people. So we appreciate that.
Yes.
If you still haven't posted yours and you got Speed Street, tag us. We love to see it. We appreciate the support. So my Spotify rap had a lot of country music on it. So I don't know if that's disappointing anybody, but there you go.
Yeah, Ben's in his big country phase now. Good for you.
I actually asked Tiff from Dirty Mo. I was like, does Speed Street get a Spotify? Or like, can we see how many people like listen to it or download it? Like, I was very curious to hear about that. So she said she was going to look into that. I want like our own screenshot. You know what I mean? How many people listened in how many different countries and all that stuff. I feel like Spotify does a good job at that.
Yeah.
We got to find that.
Oh, also, yeah, no, definitely. But also kind of a podium, not really, but just a point of conversation. Got to meet the boss finally.
Oh yeah. I didn't know you hadn't met him.
Hadn't met Dale Jr. in person. We hopped on the download when we first got on with Dirty Mo, but that was just over one of these. And so we got a nice little gift from Dirty Mo. The folks there gave us a nice little plaque of our show, our logo, which is awesome. But then getting to meet Dale Jr., all the people that like a bunch of buddies and people who follow me were like, whoa, like Dale Jr., how was he? I was like, he's great. He was super nice.
Yeah.
Like just a regular ass dude. So
had a great interaction at a Menards in Indianapolis. Yeah, that's the funny thing is they were filming a Menards commercial with Brandon Jones, obviously their driver now for Junior Motorsports, and he's obviously partnered with Menards. But I was like, how did you guys end up in Indiana? And they're like, oh, the weather. I'm like, well, it's cold here too. So
right.
I don't know how they ended up here, but they were here, and we all got to link up at a Menards and have a nice little chat in the water heater section of a Menards. So I enjoyed that a lot.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
All right, P1 for me. This is a bit of a left-hand turn, a bit of a right-hand turn even. And I don't know if many people, this might even be a touchy subject for some, but P1 for me is Bitcoin currently. I obviously my sponsor BitNile. There's been a tie to the Bitcoin world for a while, and I've followed it obviously since even Renus had the Bitcoin racing team car back in like 2021. Been an interesting run, And it seems like maybe the Bitcoin boys are kind of on their way back. I don't know, but it was something that I did happen to, I invested. I was like, I'm just going to maybe buy a little bit of this when it was very, very low, like below the 20,000s. And boy, Bitcoin has gone on a run. So, good for, maybe you're going to start to see more of those, crypto-based sponsors that appear on a bunch of NASCAR Xfinity cars, all these different things.
Sure.
Who knows? Maybe NFTs are back. I don't know. I don't know. But as someone who did personally get involved, and I got told I was an idiot for doing so. But if you saw how much, what I bought is worth now, you're like, well, all right, that seems like a pretty solid investment. So again, I'm not encouraging anyone to do anything. Obviously, I'm just a guy with an app. But it's been I think the world was funny when Bitcoin was booming. So I'm very curious to see what happens as it keeps going here.
All right.
We're sitting almost at 44,000, which is wild.
Well, that's great. I think we're now legally obliged to say that Connor is not a financial advisor.
I am not a financial
advisor.
advisor. I am, in fact, an idiot. So don't ever listen to me. I am a dumb, and I am not an advisor. Yeah.
I hope that works out.
One on the list for me is BTC, baby.
Yeah. I hope that works out. But just covering Dale Jr., Dirty Mo, all of our asses, I think we got to say not a financial advisor, not a, all that.
But I do own some Bitcoin. That's what I was saying.
Good.
So there you go.
Good. Best of luck to you, buddy.
Thank you. Excited about it.
Ben, do you have anyone? Have we done yours?
Yeah.
We did?
I'm gonna go off your guys' basketball deal you did earlier. I went to the Wolves game on Saturday and they beat the Hornets pretty good, and they're the number one. They have the best record in the NBA right now. So
Timberwolves too.
Timberwolves, number one team in the West.
How did I even know that? How did I not even know that?
And Edwards, man.
And Edwards, Nas Reed. Oh man, the boys are cooking. So
the boys
I gotta
are
cooking. I'm not bandwagon, but when they're that good, you kind of have to cheer for them. So
jump in.
Yeah.
And I'm so done with the be a bandwagon. It's not bandwagon. Right. Everyone's gonna be more into something when it's popular. Just shut up.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just how it goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, they're the home team, so I feel like I can come in and out as
you're
you
a home
please,
team
so
guy.
It's fine. Yeah. So
that makes sense to me.
Hopefully they keep it up. I don't really get how this in-season tournament is working though, because they're not in it, so I don't really know the deal with that. But every time I see one of those courts,
did they lose? They're not in it. They lost.
I guess I don't even know. They're not in. That's all I know. Yeah.
Pacers are undefeated in the in-season tournament, so
that's right.
Here we go. We're going to Vegas and competing for some cash.
Love that.
Yeah. No, good for you. Hometown team's doing well, except for the Vikings. But who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, no man's land. Well,
the Pastronaut, that rocket ship ran out of gas.
Yeah, that crashed pretty quick.
Yikes.
Yeah. No, well, so they're in that weird kind of no man's land where they're right on the cusp of playoff spot. But at this point, you can't really tank and get a good pick. So what do you do? I don't know.
Well, what do you do? I mean,
I'm gonna complain either way. That's all I know. Whatever they did to do, I'm gonna say they should have done the opposite.
That's fine. So, that's fandom, baby.
That's how it should be. Yeah,
that's fandom.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco's throwing balls in the NFL still, so that's the era that we're in right now in football. You got Joe Flacco and
it's true,
and that fella for the Giants.
I was gonna say Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito,
baby.
DeVito. Tom DeVito and Joe Flacco and although I will say I'm a Bengals fan. I'm a Colts fan first, Bengals fan right behind. Old Cuzzy there who was throwing the ball for them on Monday night. What's his name?
Jake Browning.
Jake Browning.
Yeah, he was cooking.
Old Jake
Washington
Browning
guy.
was spinning that rock. He was
Funny enough,
slinging it.
Small world. Me and my wife sat with him at the same table at Ted Karras, the center for the Bengals, Ted Karras' charity event last spring.
There you go.
Even more fun fact.
Nice guy.
Very nice guy. We had a great time. We went out to Broad Ripple after. We were partying. It was great. Even more fun fact, when he sat down and first introduced himself, I asked if he was a punter.
Nice.
So then he had to tell me that he was a quarterback. So
there you go.
Yeah, I made an ass of
quarterback.
Myself, but
it looked good. The guy looked good. Bengals Super Bowl still on.
Yeah.
Very punter-like name, though. I could see that. Jake Browning seems like a punter name. So.
Well, he said Jake, and when he doesn't have pads or a helmet on, he's a pretty slender fellow.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I just very wrongly assumed. But the thing is I'm a huge college football fan. So as soon as he said quarterback, I said, "Oh my God, Jake Browning, like from Washington. I'm so sorry."
Of course.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, and it all clicked, and he was very good about it. Maybe he afterwards was like, "Fuck that asshole," but up front, he was great. We had casino night there. We had drinks. We went to piano bar and Broad Ripple afterwards. Great
Love
dude.
that.
But yeah, he's running a more effective and efficient offense in the second NFL game than the Pittsburgh Steelers have in the last 4 years. So that's always great. Love that.
There you go. I went to high school with a guy named Jake Brown, but not Browning. So it's funny little crossover there.
Okay.
Sorry about your Steelers, but that's our podium. We had a great time doing it. And yeah, we'll wrap up the show with obviously one of our favorite segments, right? Let's get into it. You want to get into it?
Let's see what old Ricky Treadway's spitting out for us this week.
Well, yeah. Ricky Treadway, Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week this week. We went with the 1959 Indy 500, 1959, won by Roger Ward. Roger Ward is the winner of this one. A couple names in this race that probably could be, good. A couple names that we've used before, but this is a new one. Don Branson. Don Branson finished 24th. Don Branson looks like, where is Don Branson from? Don Branson, American race car driver, born in Illinois, Rantoul, Illinois. Sprint cars, obviously USAC stuff. 128 starts, including the 1959 through the 1966 Indy 500. Wow. Finished in the top 10 85 times with 7 victories. Sprint Car Series champion in 1959 and 64. So Don Branson had some juice. Tough though.
Yeah. Passed tragically.
Yeah. Tough. Lot of crashes in the Indy 500. Well, or DNFs, but looks like his best finish in the Indy 500 was 4th. So couple great runs. 4th, I see he's got a 5th, an 8th as well, just like me last year. Hey-o, 8th places. So yeah, good run for Don at the Indy 500.
All right, Don. Appreciate that, Ricky and Connor, as always. Good deal. All right, well, appreciate everybody for sticking with us here during the off season. Next week, we'll wrap up 2023. With our holiday send-off show going into the Christmas and New Year's and Hanukkah holiday and everything with a great guest that's going to be coming. But look forward to that. So thanks so much again for everybody listening. And until next week, we'll talk to you then on Speed Street.
Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.